guys, I thought I'd take a moment today to talk about a character that's an absolute joy to play. Even though she's not the most powerful character, she's a lot of fun, and if you play her well, uh, going through story mode can kind of look like a highlight reel. It's just really cool stuff, one thing after another. You can get really creative with her skills. So, um, the theme of her kit is just massive AoE. Every skill she has monster AoE, with the exception of her light attack. Um, it's your standard punch. Everything else is bigger than usual. Her her kit is one that I really misunderstood the first time I played with her. I don't think I used it correctly, and the reason being is her rapid fire webs, I believe, are supposed to be a setup. So you see I disabled those enemies there, then I used her teleport to get on top of them and knock them out once they were disabled. And I really think that is the whole idea behind her kit, is using her webs to disable enemies, then using another attack to follow up like I did right there. If they're disabled, then you're guaranteed the crit on the follow up. Now, the weakness to her kit is that none of her attacks hit quite as hard as someone with less AoE, and also that her crowd control, while it works very well on minor enemies, usually one web is all it takes, elites are actually quite difficult to control with her web. As a matter of fact, I usually don't bother with the elites in using her web. But for the regular minor enemies without a stagger bar, one shot is usually all it takes, and it works great. So here we're going to see an attack called Swing Time. This is her area attack. You can see it combines really nice with the rapid fire and has massive AoE. That one's area tagged, so you can combine that with another area or a barrage for a crash synergy, with a element for elemental barrage. But the two that I really like to combine that with is beam for reflect or rapid fire for ricochet. Had a really hard time deciding where or which clips to include in her playthrough, because it's just so much fun. Here you see the AoE on her jump. That, man, that's just crazy. I mean, look how far those guys are, and she's just bouncing them in the air from, oh geez, I mean, like half a screen away. So anyway, next skill we'll talk about is legit beatdown. That's this big web ball here. It is a skill that I really did not understand when I first played her. I thought it was a garbage skill because I saw it do a little bit of damage when I was swinging it around, not realizing the big damage comes when it hits the ground at the end of its travel. This is a ranged skill. It's not a melee skill. So, even though it has a melee bash tag, you use it like a ranged skill. Like I said, it hits twice, it hits the enemy, then when the ball hits the ground, that's where the big damage happens. It has a bash tag, which is one of my favorite tags because that allows you to get synergy with another bash, a charge, a safeguard, a launch, or a slam for a shockwave synergy, or with an element for a catalyst synergy. And then if you want to be a jerk, you can combine it with somebody's whirlwind for a calamity. And there you just saw me use that for utility. Took out that sniper before it had the ability to shoot me. Just a fun attack. Now here in a second you're going to see me use her attack called Disappearing Act. That one is a slam attack, and it allows you to teleport. Has nice AoE just like everything else in her kit. There is a limit to how far you can teleport with this skill, but it's a pretty long distance that you can get away with teleporting. That being a slam attack, it has a couple of good synergies, so you got to be a little bit more picky about who you put on your team, because this skill, I would highly recommend that you make sure you got a couple of strong synergies on your team for the skill, because you're going to use this for elites and for bosses. As you can see here, if you're trying to use legit beatdown on a boss, you've got to be all the way across the screen. It really kind of limits what you can do position-wise. So Disappearing Act or Teleport skill, that one is a lot more practical for hitting bosses. You can be pretty much any distance from them and use that. So with it being a slam, you can combine it with a bash attack for shockwave, you can combine it with an explosion attack for eruption, or you can combine it with an element for a catalyst synergy. All three of those synergies are really good synergies. I recommend having people with those attacks on your team. The other synergies that will happen with that attack are combining with another slam for Tremor or a whirlwind for Calamity. Don't really recommend those. I find them kind of lacking in damage or practicality, either because you're blowing somebody's whirlwind up or it just doesn't do that much damage. So that's Disappearing Act. So I just realized I never talked about her rapid fire attack, other than to say it's a great setup for her other skills. Her rapid fire attack is actually a really good attack. There's what sets it apart from other rapid fires is that it has a nice spread on it. You can hit several enemies at the same time, depending on the distance that varies, but you can hit several enemies at the same time. The rate of fire on that attack is good. It has a nice quick firing rate, so it combines well with other attacks for rapid fire synergy. So you can combine that thing with barrage, with area, with safeguard, with whirlwind for a ricochet effect, or you can combine it with another rapid fire for the scattershot synergy. Uh, the only problem with scattershot synergy is that if you're playing with the AI, they're really bad at aiming that synergy, and your synergy damage is probably not going to end up in the right place, and probably isn't going to be hitting the enemy. So let's talk about the ISO for Spider-Gwen. She doesn't have that many tags on her attacks. Everything is melee with the exception of her rapid fire attack. So, melee damage is fine. If you want to benefit everything, you're going to need to either strength or damage to enemies. And then, like I said, melee is the next best thing after that. You could always use the universal stuff, stagger damage or energy or percent damage when energy is below 50%, resisting being interrupted. All your standard stuff is great, but for damage itself, you're either going to want to stick to the strength, the melee damage, or the damage to enemies. So I always do the Ultimate Alliance of Evil just to get an idea of the boss fighting capability of the character I'm playing. Spider-Gwen probably comes out lower down on the roster as far as overall damage output, but through experimentation I did find that if you're not switching characters, if you're switching characters and you're staggering with one character and then switching to another for damage, and then so on and so forth like that, this is not necessarily as applicable. But if you're wanting to just play one character exclusively and have the AI control the other three, I've come to the point of determining that you are best off with 3 tanks with a decent stagger damage, pretty much no matter who you're playing. Just for a comparison, here I have Spider-Gwen, Venom, Ghost Rider, and Luke Cage. Got some nice synergies on that team with each other and with Spider-Gwen, and they have a good amount of stagger damage, and the tank enemies don't seem to be nearly as guilty of just kind of walking around looking at the enemies. They get in there a little bit more, it seems. So I end up finishing this run in about 5 minutes and 53 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. So I did some other runs. One of the other runs I did was a Web Warriors run with Spider-Gwen, Venom, Black Widow, and Miles Morales. And there's some great synergies there. Miles Morales High Voltage Lines is a great synergy for Spider-Gwen Slam and for her Bash, either one. I mean, it's fantastic for that. So it's not really a problem with the synergies, I don't think. It's just simply that the AI spends so much time being passive, and especially with the with the heroes you think of as damage dealers, um, that you just don't get the effect out of them. So, long story short, what I'm getting around to is when I was playing that Web Warriors comp, it added about a minute to my run times versus this comp right here. So, just a little tidbit: if you're doing boss rifts and you want to play one character exclusively and let the AI control the other three, you might just give it a try of picking three tank type heroes and letting the AI control them, because that has been, in my experience, the most effective teams uh, when you're not switching characters. Like I said, that all goes down the drain when you start switching characters and activating different skills on each one. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope there was some information there that, like me, that maybe some of you guys missed, and you can give her another shot. She's a lot of fun.